Okay, let's talk about writing a scientific paper. For a lot of us, it feels like this huge, stressful mountain to climb, right? It can be an intimidating hurdle in what's already a long career. But what if I told you there's a way to turn that dread into a clear, strategic, and maybe even creative process? Today, we're going to break down a method that does just that, a backward approach that completely flips the writing process on its head.
Man, this quote just hits home, doesn't it? Papers that are as excruciating to read as they were to write. It perfectly captures that shared pain a lot of early career researchers feel. You know, that publish or perish pressure makes us focus on just getting something, anything done. And the result is often work that's just painful for everyone, the writer and the reader. Oh, that feeling, the existential dread of the blank page. You've done the research, you've got all your data, you've done the hard lab work, and you open up a new document and nothing. That blinking cursor just mocks you. It feels like every single unwritten section is just a new opportunity to fail. Well, we're putting an end to that today.
All right, so let's start right there. Before we can fix this problem, we really have to understand why scientific writing feels so incredibly hard in the first place. And here's the thing, it's not just you. The system itself has some built-in hurdles that make it tough.
Think about it. How did most of us learn to write a paper? It was kind of like being thrown in the deep end of a pool, right? We learn by osmosis, just reading a ton of papers and hoping we absorb the style. We're trying to cram our complex, messy data into these rigid, formulaic boxes, all while running on that academic hamster wheel of pressure to publish. And on top of it all, there's that constant fear of the peer review process just looming over your head. It's a lot.
So how do we break out of this cycle? Well, it all starts with changing how you see the structure of a paper. It's not a cage, it's actually a really powerful blueprint. So let's unlock the hidden logic behind the famous IMRAD format. IMRAD, you've seen it 1,000 times. Introduction, methods, results, and discussion. It is the absolute backbone of almost every research paper out there. But here's the key. It's not just some arbitrary set of headings. It's a direct reflection of the scientific process itself. It's a logical journey from a question to its ultimate meaning. And once you really get that, you're in control. You know, the best way to visualize this flow is to think of a wine glass or an hourglass. The paper starts out broad, right? That's the top of the glass. That's your introduction, where you place your specific work inside the much wider context of your field. You're painting the big picture.
And then just like the stem of the glass, the paper narrows way, way down. This is your methods and results sections. This is the most focused, most specific part of your entire paper. It's the nitty-gritty, exactly what you did and precisely what you found. This is your core contribution.
And finally, you get to the base of the glass, and it widens back out again. This is your discussion and conclusion. Here, you take your super specific findings, and you connect them back to those big picture questions you started with in the intro. You explain what it all means and why anyone should care. In fact, you can boil this entire structure down to 4 fundamental questions. The introduction asks, why did you start? The methods section asks, how did you do it? The results section asks, what did you find? And the discussion, probably the most important question of all, asks, so what? So what does any of this mean? Answering these 4 questions is the entire point of your paper. So with that blueprint firmly in our minds, now we get to the real game changer. The core strategy here is backward writing. Yeah, you heard me right. Instead of starting at page 1 and trying to push forward, we're going to flip the entire process on its head and start with the end. Most of us were taught the forward approach, right? You just start with the introduction and you grind your way to the conclusion. The goal becomes simply finishing. But the backward approach is totally different. It's strategic. You start by defining your end goals, which makes the entire process purposeful, efficient, and actually focused on clear communication.
This idea actually comes from the field of educational design, and it is so powerful. This quote says it all. The best designs derive backward from the learning sought. Just think of your paper as a lesson plan for your reader. What do you want them to learn? What do you want them to take away? You build the entire paper backward from that one goal. This is it. This is the single most critical question you have to answer before you write a single word of your manuscript. Answering this is a form of pre-writing, and trust me, it's the most crucial step. It lays the foundation for your whole paper and keeps you from getting lost down the road. So this brings us to the pre-writing checklist. First, who are you talking to? Who is your audience? Their expertise determines your language. Second, what is the one major idea? Trying to say too much is the fastest way to say nothing at all. Third, what are your professional goals here?
A paper you're writing for a job application is going to be framed very differently than a minor update for your field. And finally, what's the right journal? Answering these questions before you start writing gives you a clear target to aim for. It's a lifesaver.
Okay, now let's see how all this pre-writing homework actually translates into a practical, section-by-section game plan. Once your goals are defined, you're not staring at a blank page anymore. You are executing a strategy.
Think of your introduction as a simple 3-act story. Act 1. You establish the problem and why it matters, why anyone should care. Act 2. You review what other people have already tried to do to solve it. This isn't about tearing down their work, it's about setting the stage. And then, Act 3, the crucial turn. Nevertheless, this is where you identify the specific gap that your work is perfectly designed to fill. And here's an absolutely crucial pro tip. Always, always end your introduction with a clear statement of intent. A sentence that starts with, "In this paper, we will..." This is a promise you're making to your reader. It's a roadmap that tells them exactly where you're going, and it gives them the confidence to follow you.
Now for the discussion. This is where you bring it all home. Just follow this 4-step argument. First, summarize. What did you accomplish? Second, sell it. Make the case for why your work is an important step forward. Third, be honest. A well-written limitations section doesn't weaken your paper. It actually builds your credibility. And finally, conclude with that single, memorable take-home message that's going to stick with your reader.
And finally, we have to remember something really important. That first draft, it isn't the end. It's barely even the beginning. The real magic, the part where a great paper is actually created, happens in the revision process.
This is such a huge mindset shift. Peer review isn't a final judgment. It is an essential part of the writing process itself. That critique and those suggestions aren't signs that you failed, they're opportunities. Engaging with that feedback is what elevates a good paper into a great one.
So when you put it all together, you can see the full workflow is a cycle. You start by clarifying your goals. Then you draft and revise with those goals as your North Star. You actively seek out feedback to make the work stronger, and then you publish. It's a purposeful, iterative process, not just a painful, linear sprint to the finish line.
So let's end on this thought. A scientific paper is not just a report of facts. It is an extended, carefully constructed argument. By starting with the end in mind, you're not just filling in sections on a template, you are thoughtfully building that argument piece by piece. So the next time you face that blank page, don't ask yourself, where do I start? Ask yourself, what argument will I build?